And what has ended up happening is that grief has become a subtext or a subplot all the
Mhm.
way through, a sub theme, I guess you could say,
Through
all the
all the
way
books.
through all the books,
Yeah,
because that's life. That's life. We all
right.
deal with grief and loss.
Hello, and welcome to Story Power, a bi monthly podcast I created because I'm an unabashed story lover. Stories have had a huge impact on my life, starting with the family movie night discussions my parents instituted when I was a child. I want to share that love with you. As cognitive scientist Roger C. Shanks says, humans are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. I'm making it my mission to not only spread the love of stories, but all the valuable things they teach us about human nature and relationships. We humans are emotional creatures, and stories help us examine our emotions from a comfortable distance. They also help us walk in the shoes of the characters to help us see the world in new ways. It's my hope you gain some valuable insights from my guests.
Hello, Story Power listeners. This is episode 133. And today I'm talking to John DeDakis, who happens to be a member of Prolific Writers Life that I recently joined. And so I'm really happy to have you on the show. I can't wait to hear about your books because I've read two of them.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so welcome.
Thanks, Lucinda. It's good to be here.
Now, I was looking at the questions that you gave, and I was wondering this first one. I have talked to other journalists who became novelists, and I was wondering about your journey from being a journalist to being a novelist. How did that
How did
happen?
that go? Well, it happened when I was at CNN. I
Hmm.
was at CNN 25 years, but probably within the first year, they made me an editor. I'd been a writer, and I discovered that editing is tedious, but it pays well, and I
Hmm.
needed a creative outlet. And so I started fiddling around with writing, first starting to write a biography of a friend of mine who'd been murdered, but I
Oh,
discovered that that took a lot of time. It was expensive because I was doing traveling, and it just I was digging up information about him that his family didn't even know. So that was causing a lot of consternation, and so I switched to fiction. But and so I went to a writers' conference that was meeting in the University of Georgia. I was based in Atlanta at the time, and I learned the craft of writing, and I learned the business of publishing. And so it was a long process. It took 10 years from the time I started writing my first novel to the time I got my agent. My book went through 14 major revisions. My agent is the 39th agent that I queried, and it took 10 years.
wow. Now, was the first book, oh shoot, what was the name of the first book? Fast Track, was that the first book?
Yes, fast track. Very good.
Okay, I'm old, so sometimes I forget the names of things.
Oh, I'm older. I'm sure I'm older.
And it's been a while since I read it. But I really liked Lark a whole lot. And so
Thank you.
yeah, so I had to stop reading. I read two books and then I had to stop reading because I had other podcast guests and I had to read their books. And so I got interrupted. But you have six books now, is that right?
I know. I'm as surprised as you are.
Wow. Wow. So, do you want to tell about the sixth book?
Sure. I mean, I can go through them all quickly. Fast
Oh,
Track
that
is
would
the
be good.
first one. Lark is she's recovering from having been sexually assaulted. That's her backstory.
Hmm. Hmm.
She's dropped out of college. She's working as a server. Has written the great American novel that keeps getting rejected. The series begins when she discovers the body of the aunt who raised her from infancy, and that trauma launches her on a search to find out more about her past. So she goes to the small town in Wisconsin where the accident happened that orphaned her. She gets a newspaper clipping and discovers she's the miracle baby who survived a car train collision, but no one had ever told her. So she convinces the newspaper editor to let her do a follow up story. Two of the sources are the mayor and the sheriff. They're running against each other for Congress. The election is 1 week away, and each guy has a secret that will unravel the mystery. And so that starts Lark on a career in journalism. The
Yes.
publisher, Lionel Stone, becomes her mentor. He has a Pulitzer in journalism. He's a former editor at the New York Times. So he's got chops, and she's learning a
Mm-hmm.
lot about journalism. And the next novel, Bluff, is set. Both of those are set in southern Wisconsin. And in Bluff, she helps Lionel solve the mystery surrounding his daughter's death along the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu.
Mm-hmm.
And I hiked the trail to do my research,
Whoa.
and so that was a fun book to write. And then Troubled Water is the third one. Lark becomes the cops and courts reporter at a daily newspaper in southern Georgia that Lionel helps her get the job. It's a feeder to the New York Times. And on her way to the job, she discovers the body of a young girl who's been strangled, the first victim of what becomes the work of a serial killer. And Lark has the inside track on that.
Wow.
Um, she falls in love with the chief photographer. They end up in the next book together, which is Bullet in the Chamber. By this time, she is White House correspondent for the Associated Press, and her boyfriend, Doug, is a photographer with the Associated Press as well. So they're colleagues again. And this one is sort of personal because the subplot deals with the death of my son, my youngest son, of a heroin overdose. And so I used the collateral damage surrounding the time that he was missing and found dead, and I baked that into Bullet in the Chamber, which deals with heroin and drug dealing. Um, And then the fifth novel, Fake, Lark is still White House press secretary or White House correspondent for the Associated Press, and it's called Fake, and she's the victim of fake news. I started writing it when Trump was elected the first time because he kept calling journalists the enemies of the American people.
Yes, that's right.
And
Mhm.
fake news, there are consequences when you make things up about people, and
Mhm.
Lark becomes the victim of fake news. And then in Enemies Domestic, which is the most recent novel, Lark has become White House press secretary. The book begins on her first day on the job. She's pregnant by this time, ambivalent about becoming a single mom. The first question that she's asked in the daily briefing comes from a reporter with an agenda who asks, "Are you or are you not planning to abort your unborn child?" And that puts Lark in the crosshairs of, the cross current of the
Mhm.
abortion debate. She is the poster child for abort or not to abort, and it puts
Mhm.
her life in danger, and all kinds of bad things happen.
Oh my goodness, poor
Oh, and
Lark.
I should say, and a dictator becomes president. It could
Uh,
never happen, but
no, it could never happen. Well, that's funny that you should say that. I don't feel so bad now. My second book, which is a sequel to my first one, the two women are involved in their respective women's. It's a two timeline thing, and Jenna in the present. I'm really struggling because how much reality do I put into the book?
oh,
But
go for reality, man.
but
That's
but
important.
yeah, but I decided I'm just gonna go for it. Yeah, so
Good for
because
you.
yeah, I even included COVID in it because
Sure.
I started it quite a while ago.
You're
So
right what you know.
yeah,
You're right what you know.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't live in Southern Oregon. I used to live in Oregon. I used to live in Portland, Oregon, but not never lived in Southern Oregon. But we have friends who live there, and so At one point, Barry and I were thinking about moving there, but then we ended up in Arizona because both sets of parents lived here at the time, and we've
Sure.
we've lived here almost 30 years, and their family has come and gone, and now we're the last ones here. So, yeah,
My.
yeah. I have difficulty. I'm going to ask this question. It's not on your sheet. But I have
Okay.
difficulty sometimes when I write about things that have actually happened to me. I tweak them so it's not the exact event,
Exactly.
but
Right.
but
Yeah.
sometimes I have a really difficult time making the emotions real for the characters because I'm crying as I'm writing it.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
So it was it really difficult to write that one about your son? That you where you include the stuff about your
Oh,
son?
sure. I mean, I cried the whole time I wrote the book, because I mean it was a catharsis. To write it was a catharsis.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
Fast Track deals with my sister's suicide. She killed herself in 1980, carbon monoxide poisoning. I was on the scene, and so again, it was a cathartic experience to write
Mm,
about it. And what has ended up happening is that grief has become a subtext or a subplot all the
mm.
way through, a sub theme, I guess you could say,
Through
all the
all the
way
books?
through all the books,
Yeah,
because that's life. That's life. We all
right.
deal with grief and loss.
Yeah. Yeah, both my parents are gone now. And but I remember I didn't cry a whole lot when my father died at the time. But when we had the memorial for him, oh my goodness, I was weeping because he was my mentor.
Sure. Oh,
And
yeah.
so, and then my mom died in, let's see, last February was a year that she had died. And we
Mhm.
had our little family reunion and memorial for her. And, they were great parents.
Right.
And I miss them.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And there's no time limit on grief. I mean, it just
Mm-mm.
I did a documentary on it back when I was a reporter in the 80s. And the one of the consultants I interviewed said, grief is like holding an inner tube underwater. You can do it for a while, and then it bobs to the surface, and at
Mm-mm.
inopportune times. And Stephen's been dead for 12 years, and every now and then something pops up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it triggers a feeling.
Yeah, sometimes it's a movie, something that happens in a movie or a book that I'm reading, and I'll just start weeping.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what? Crying is a great it's a great emotional safety valve. I wish
Hmm.
more guys did it.
Yes. Barry and I were watching Ted Lasso again we went up for my niece's graduation from the University of Washington, and my sister and her family had never seen it. And so we said, okay, we got to watch it. So we started watching it. And when we got home, we were watching it again, and I was like, I just love that they have the men crying in that series. It's
Yeah,
like, yes, all right.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's a problem in our society because um I think that, and I don't want to generalize because I certainly know men who are not ashamed to cry, but I think that
mhm.
by and large, it's frowned upon among men. And what ends up happening is that grief can be corrosive if you
Yes.
don't allow yourself to
Yes.
emote. And if you'll notice, most of the mass murders that have been happening are done by guys. And I think it's unresolved anger.
Oh,
The
sure.
bullets become tears, or the
Yeah.
tears become bullets. The tears
Right.
become bullets.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, I grew up with a father who cried. So,
All right.
I was very fortunate. But yeah, so the editor, what is his name again? Stone, Mr. Stone. What's his first name?
Lionel
Yeah,
Stone.
Lionel Stone. Does he come through all of the books?
He's in all of them. Yep.
Oh, good, because I liked him. Yeah. And it
Good.
was
Thank
very
you.
tragic though what happened to their daughter. I was
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I know.
thought I think I know the kind of person who would kill her, but had the wrong guy.
Uh-huh. Oh, so okay. Well, and there's a scene where he has to identify his daughter's body, and
Yeah.
I wrote that before Stephen died, and then I had to identify his body,
Oh.
and when I read the scene in Troubled Water, long after Stephen had died, I mean. It got me. It got me because it was the emotional resonance was palpable.
Mm-hmm.
The circumstances were different, but boy,
Mm-hmm.
that got me, and it was uncanny that I was able to imagine the experience before I had it, and
Yes.
it still was emotionally resonant.
Yeah. Oh dear. I can't imagine that. I mean, I can imagine it, but I don't want to imagine it.
I don't wish that on anybody. It's a powerful experience.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you should say that because when I was writing my first book, I had an incident in there where Jenna in the present's mother is in a terrible car accident and she's brain dead, and they have to unplug her, you know.
Yeah,
And I wrote that before my aunt died, and
yeah,
that happened to my aunt.
yep,
I mean, she wasn't in a car accident, but she was brain dead, and they had to make the decision to unplug her. And my mom
yeah.
said, "How did you know to write that?" And I went, "I don't know. I just
Right.
wrote it."
Imagination is a spooky thing.
It is a spooky thing, yes. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your years at CNN? And,
I'll talk about whatever you want.
well, it's your episode.
Yeah, but you get to follow your curiosity. I don't want to talk about stuff you're not interested in.
Oh, well, I'm interested in almost everything.
Oh,
So,
okay. Well, CNN is definitely worth talking about. What
okay,
do you
good.
want to know? What do you want to know?
Well, it's I just think that working at a place like that it would be so much rush, rush, rush. Um,
Oh yeah.
and and then is there competition between the different reporters, or are they like a community? That's the kind of thing I'm wondering about.
Oh, you want all the dirt, right?
I guess.
Well, I don't, you know what? I don't really have a lot of dirt. I mean, it was a pretty collegial atmosphere when I was there, and it
Uh-huh.
kind of surprised me that there wasn't a lot of backbiting and stuff. I mean, people are people, and I think you're going to find that at any organization.
Mhm.
Uh, but for the most part, it was a collegial situation, and in the later time, there seemed to be more of it, or maybe I was just more aware of it. It wasn't fun anymore at the very end.
Mhm.
Um, but for the most part, you're definitely right. A lot of type A personalities there. And there was one producer I worked with who was a real um, what's the word? Well, not that word, but he was a microman. He was a micromanager, and I
Yeah.
can remember during the Obama inauguration, I was talking to a SWAT team leader at Union Station, and it
Mhm.
was after the inauguration was over, and so the main event was over, and I was talking to this guy about management, and I mentioned that the guy I work for is a micromanager, and he said to me, "This is a SWAT team leader." He said, "If I were a micromanager, people would die." You need to allow your people to innovate and be able to respond in the moment, and if someone's a micromanager, it saps all the creativity out of the system,
Yeah.
and so that was a good reinforcement or indicator that I read the room right,
Yeah.
where I was at the time. So,
Yeah. That's an
but
interesting.
generally speaking, it was really a good experience.
Yeah. That's an interesting comment by the SWAT leader because he's allowing his people to make use their intelligence.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the. I mean that's been pretty much the way the military has run in this country. I mean it's the reason we won World War II is because
Mhm.
even at the ground level. troops
Mhm.
had the ability to innovate, whereas the Nazis, it came from the top down. It was very
Yeah,
regimented.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yes. Well, I kind of understand that whole micromanaging thing because I was a teacher, and I had, department chairs who were like that. So, not all of them, but some of them. And I
Yeah.
was a teacher that sort of kept my head down. And they would say, here are the rules, especially things like when cell phones became really
Oh yeah,
everybody had one, and
sure.
if you see one of the kids with cell phones, you take it away and bring it to the office. And I'm like, no, not doing that. But what I did say to the kids was, if I see it 3 times, it goes in the basket until the end of class, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get it at the
There
end
you
of
go.
class. Yeah. So I didn't really have any problems with that, but I was sort of a rule breaker. Um, yes. So did you enjoy editing more? Well, it sounds like you didn't enjoy editing as much as being a reporter. Did
Yeah, you're
what were
right.
the
I mean, the being a reporter was, I mean, there was certain amount of stress in being a reporter because you had to respond to situations, very quickly. A lot of times you were
mm,
thrust in situations you didn't really know much about, and so you had to get answers quickly.
hmm
Um, Logistics was always an issue. Of course, this was back before the internet and things like that. Editing had its own problems because they basically made me an editor before they never gave me any training to be an editor. They just threw me in the deep end. And I was a writer and I was supervising the writing of some majorly great writers,
hmm
way better than I was in many cases. And one of them became CNN president. So I mean, I was really in over my head. And so I made a lot of mistakes in the early stages. I mean, I ended up being an editor 25 years and I kind of worked into a pretty good rhythm. But initially I would, you would see other people's writing and it wasn't the same as yours. And so the temptation is to change it into your voice, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
I would be crashing shows and stories would be missing in their slots. I'd be pissing off writers who are perfectly good at what they do. And so I learned to evolve and focus on the main things. Is it accurate? Is the writing clear? Are there any dropped words? Is everything spelled correctly? And then just make sure that the writer's creativity is there. And if I've got any questions, talk to the writer about it and realize it's a two-way street. In the crunch, you may have to make a change, but I'd let my writers know I'm making a change here. Protect me from myself. Let me know that I'm doing the right thing, and push back if you need to. And so it was a really, we developed a pretty collegial relationship, but I definitely needed the creative outlet because it was tedious to edit.
Yes. Oh man.
But it paid well, but it paid well.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think I would not like to be an editor either. Um, yeah. I mean, I have theater background, so when I'm watching a movie or something, I'm going, you know, I'm picking
Sure.
it apart, because,
Yeah. Oh,
well,
yeah.
we did that when we were kids. My parents instituted movie night. My dad was dyslexic,
Hmm.
and even though he taught himself how to read, he couldn't read out loud to us, really. It was too hard.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And my mom worked, so she was tired at the end of the day. But the movie nights were great, and we got to analyze the stories, and I really learned a lot about body language and facial expressions and tone of voice, and do they match what the person's saying and that kind of thing. But sometimes editors or people who are like reviewing will say this or this about the play or about the movie, and I'm going, oh, no, 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 don't you remember back when? In
Yeah.
my head,
Yeah.
I don't always challenge it on paper, but yeah, in my head. So I think I kind of understand that tedious part. I
Sure.
wouldn't want to do that. I'm more the creative, wanna, you know,
Yeah, I mean, editing is fault finding, but one of the things I've turned it into is I also become a coach. And that's what's really fulfilling, is to be able to encourage someone along the way.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I'm able to give them, in a sense, constructive, critical feedback.
Yeah,
But the goal is to help them turn it around.
yeah. That's the
More
kind of person.
collaborative.
Yeah, that's the kind of person. I had a couple of women who'd helped me do that. They were like that in my first book. And one of them, when she said, I couldn't put the book down, when she said that, I said, oh, maybe it's finished now. At least finished enough that I can publish it.
Right.
But when I do the second book, my husband and I are thinking of having the first one re-looked at and maybe tightened up or something, and then publish market them together.
Hmm.
So yeah, but that's the kind of person I am. When I was teaching acting or something, I liked to give constructive criticism,
Right.
This,
Yeah.
this is the thing you did well, this is something you could improve, and this is another thing you did well. That kind of, a little
Oh, the
sandwich.
Oreo kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and a lot of them were shaking in their boots on the first night of class, and I
Wow.
said, "Oh, this is just a class, and remember, the audience wants you to succeed. So everybody in this class is scared. Everybody wants you to do well,
Sure.
And then they would
Exactly.
go,
Yeah.
yeah.
Same principles involved.
So is that the kind of coaching that you do for Prolific Writer's Life?
For Prolific Writer's Life, I'm usually leading a writing workshop on any number of topics: how to write a
Mhm,
novel, how to write a memoir. One that's coming up soon is buffing and polishing, the art of the rewrite. So it's various aspects of the writing process.
mhm.
And
I
then
see.
there's a session that I'll do every now and then, ask the author anything, where I'll just
Mhm,
respond to people's questions about writing, publishing, and so on.
mm. Oh, I might have to take some of those.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
That sounds fun. I do have a person who's going to help me. She's one of my podcast guests, and she's a ghostwriter, and she writes her own uh, novels as well. And she said she'd look over my manuscript and help me fix it up a
Yeah.
little bit if it needs it. I probably will need it. You know how you do you get this way too? You need somebody else to look at your work because it in
Oh,
your
absolutely.
head,
Oh, absolutely. You need a beta reader, a couple of them, because you're too close to it. You're no longer objective, and
right?
you want someone who will see it fresh and see things that you're just too close to see now.
Yeah, like you don't need this part, or I want more
Exactly.
information here. Yeah,
Yeah, I was bored here. This is, you don't need this. What
yeah,
about this? I didn't understand that. All that's excellent feedback.
yeah. I like that too. Yeah, so I might need a couple of people to look at mine again because
Yeah.
both women that I had do it before have died now. So
Hmm.
I don't have them to rely on. So,
Well,
and
it's
my
a big
husband,
world. You'll find somebody.
yes, we'll have Lisa, and then I have Prolific Writer's Life,
Yes, exactly.
right,
Right.
where I can find people to help. Yeah, so let's see. I'm looking to see if there are any other things that I wanted to ask you. Oh, yes. You had a question or a statement about writing female characters. And sometimes I struggle writing my male characters. So
Sure.
so how do you deal with that
Well,
issue?
I teach a class on writing in the voice of other genders, and one of the guys who took the class said, and I admired his courage for saying this. He said, and this is a quote. He said, "I do not understand women, therefore I don't write them." And I remember thinking, dude, your books are probably pretty boring because women are fascinating. And I started writing a female character, not so much as any kind of calculated reason. I mean, the superficial reason is that someone suggested when I first started writing the series that I should write in a way that stretches who I am. Never been a woman, at least not in this life, so I gave it a try, and I discovered that emotions are not gender specific. We all have the exact same emotions. It's just that
Mhm.
in the in my experience, it's the women in my life who are more open about their emotions, they're more articulate about their emotions. And so when I was at CNN, I was surrounded by young women in their early to mid 20s, and they'd let me ask them questions about what it's like to be a woman. And I
Mhm.
learned so much. I mean, I learned one woman, I asked her, what's it like for guys to come on to you all the time? And she said, I can tell in the first 20 seconds if I'm safe. I never have to worry about being safe,
Mhm.
but I realized that being a woman means playing defense. And that's
Yeah.
just one little thing I picked up along the way. And then, of
Mhm.
course, a lot of these women became beta readers for me to make sure that I got it right. My
Mhm.
agent is a woman. My one of my daughter is an editor and a woman. So I've and they've been in print 20 years now. There was one reviewer who said, when as soon as I saw that it was a guy writing as a woman, I couldn't wait to take this book apart. And she said she wrote by the time I got to the fifth page, I'd forgotten it was a guy. So that's
Compliment.
encouraging. Now it really is. That was quite she made my day.
Yeah, really. I mean, I think some of my male characters are uh I make them kind of like my dad, like the couple of the
Yeah.
main ones are sort of like my dad, who was this really great listener, understanding guy. His he didn't stuff his emotions, that kind of thing, and really supportive. But then some of them are like the guys that, like your friend said, I can tell within the first few minutes whether or not I'm safe. Yeah, so some of them are like those kind of guys. I try to
Well,
have some.
it was actually a woman who said that.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was a
I
woman
know.
who said, I can tell whether or not I'm safe.
Yeah, I know. And I totally understand what she's talking about. Because
Yeah.
my first major, my first degree was in religious studies at a Christian college. I was the only woman in the program. And there
Whoa.
were people, guys, who didn't think that
Hmm.
I should be there. And
Of
every meal,
course.
they'd come and harass me about that.
How would they harass you?
Oh, they'd quote the Bible to me. Yeah, women aren't supposed to be doing this because, see, it says this in the Bible. And I'm like,
Mhm.
dude, if you were in my classes and you knew how the Bible was created, you wouldn't even be saying that. But I didn't say. I mean, I probably had
You
something
pick
that
your
I.
battles. You have to kind of choose your battles, right?
Yeah, right. And I don't even remember how long it happened, but eventually they got the idea that I wasn't going to change my mind and they quit
Yeah.
harassing
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, it's sort of like I heard some woman say once, uh, I have to prepare myself when I go outside so that I'm, aware and
Exactly.
paying it.
Yeah. You have to know yeah, what's your escape plan and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's a deeper reason I write as a woman that I didn't realize until I'd written the third book, because by this time I'd gone through grief counseling. And, that's when you really get to know yourself. And I discovered that the deeper reason I write as a woman is to create a character I wish my sister had allowed herself to become.
Oh,
Because my sister could have been a surgeon, she could have been a concert pianist, and her husband said, what would it look like a surgeon married to a football coach? And one by one, she gave up her dreams and ended it. And I didn't realize that until I was writing the speech for the Grief Counseling Center for a fundraiser, and that was when I recognized that the deeper reason, and that goes back to the spooky power of the subconscious. Writing, I
yes.
think, taps into that.
Yes. Yeah. Because, yeah, well, actually, the woman in the past is in the 1800s, and so she's really facing all kinds of challenges as a single
Yeah,
woman without parents. She's an orphan,
yeah,
and so she's got to, take care of herself as much as she can. Yeah,
exactly.
and so, but then she does meet, both characters have people in their lives who support them, and then they,
Yeah.
and also they are, uh, Jenna in the present enters her third great grandmother Morgan's consciousness when she's reading her journal. And so they help each other. They're
Right.
connected and they help each other. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I might have to think about how to write men better. Because sometimes
Well,
I'm
I
kind
mean,
of,
but yeah, I mean, just talk to men, get men to read your drafts.
mhm, mhm,
I think part of it is just engaging with, people who aren't like you. I mean, I think
mhm,
that's the essence of it. And it doesn't necessarily mean genders. It could be socioeconomic backgrounds, races,
mhm,
all of those things. The more we widen our horizon and listen to the people we're
mhm.
talking to, those voices get embedded. We ask questions that stirs them up to share. And I think it's when we are in vital contact with other people not like us, it's when we learn. When you're listening, you're learning. And
I
that will
know.
fuel your subconscious and help you make more authentic male characters.
Yes, and that's one thing I love about podcasting is I get to listen to these people's stories, and um I always mention this one. Early on when I joined Podmatch, which is my dating service for podcasters,
Ooh,
service, that's what I call it.
pod
Oh,
match, pod
Pod
match.
Match.
You and I need
Yeah.
to talk after this.
Yeah. One of my guests was an Iranian filmmaker. He was a young guy, and I think we must have talked for close to 3 hours. Editing that one down was really hard, but it was so fascinating to
Yeah,
hear him talk about the different cultures in Iran. Because, sometimes we think of a country as it's all one, everybody thinks the same kind of thing.
sure,
And that was just so, it was fascinating. And he loves American films. And so I was like, okay, how do you get them first off?
sure. Right.
um, but yeah, he was just a fascinating guy. So I always try to seek out those kind of people. And I taught on the border in Douglas, Arizona.
Uh-huh.
Most of the students had family in Mexico. They'd go across the border regularly. And, I was learning a little bit about the Mexican culture and that kind of thing because I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, you know, and I didn't know anything about the Mexican culture. So,
Exactly.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that Mark Twain said that travel is the best way to get rid of ignorance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Barry and I took a trip circumnavigating the globe in 1996. That's how we ended up in Arizona, actually, because we sold our house to do it.
Oh my.
And yeah, and it was we get to a country and we'd kind of have to, okay, now how do things work in this city or this, place where
Yeah,
we.
yeah, exactly. It's reading the room.
It was fun. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say? Did I forget? Did I ask you all the
Oh, I mean,
questions?
well, I mean, you followed your curiosity. I mean, that's the main thing. I mean, we talked about creativity. We didn't talk about journalism per se, but uh, but that's okay.
Do you want to talk about journalism? Because I don't really know much about it. So talk a little bit about
I would
journalism.
like to talk about journalism because I think that that is one of the institutions that is under attack right now.
Hmm.
And it's under attack at a time when we need reliable information more than ever. And a lot of the people who are attacking journalism don't know anything about it. They've never met a reporter, they've never been in a newsroom, they have no clue about how it's done. They really think we sat around at CNN thinking, how are we going to get Obama elected? That's a firing offense, to make things up and to act like that.
Yeah.
A professional news organization does not do that. But try convincing half the country of that
Hmm.
right now. I mean,
Hmm.
I was at a writers' event and a woman shook her fist at me and she said, "You're nothing but fake news." And I said, "So where do you get your news?" And she said, "Breitbart." which makes things up. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, and before I could say anything, she said, "Well, I have to have my opinion reinforced." And I said, "Actually, you have to have your opinion informed. And there are plenty of reliable news organizations out there. Do they get it right all the time? No. Are they perfect? No. But they have editorial oversight. There is an editor asking the reporter, where'd you get that? How do you know
Mm-hmm.
that's true? And so, the vetting process to get something in print or on the air is a lot more rigorous than I think the general public understands. But we now have social media. Anybody with a cell phone can be a journalist. Anybody who is taking something and forwarding it, posting it,
Mm-hmm.
there's no editor on your shoulder saying, where'd you get that? And
I
so there's a
know.
lot of stuff out there that's not true. But are these people really reliable journalists? It means, though, that you need to be much more um, sophisticated about curating your information. Are you just hearing from people that you agree with? Who are reinforcing your political point of view. And this is
Mm-hmm.
true whether you're on the left or the right.
Mm-hmm.
But, find reliable, fact-based news organizations. And I'll say the Associated Press and Reuters would be two go-to places. They play
Mm-hmm.
it straight.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, AP is in trouble with the Trump administration because they refused to change their style guide to say that the Gulf of Mexico is the Gulf of America because Trump doesn't have authority to name the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America because our territorial waters only extend 12 miles. And that's the equivalent of what Muammar Gaddafi did when he declared the Gulf of Sidra, all the territorial waters of Iran. It was or
Oh,
of Iraq. It was
that was a long time ago.
it was
Yeah.
the size of the Gulf of Mexico, but he didn't have authority over it.
Right.
And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
the AP is in trouble with Trump, but the AP is still playing it straight. Trump wanted to rename I can't remember what it was,
Oh,
Denali.
Denali. Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to rename it McKinley, and that's within the US. And Trump had the authority to rename it. So the Associated Press says, fine, we'll call it Mount McKinley. But Gulf of Mexico is still Gulf of Mexico, whether Trump says it is or not.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, when I was teaching English, which is what I had to teach when I went to Douglas, um, I, even though my degrees are in theater, um, I I used to do a unit on propaganda
oh man,
and try to help the students realize, to analyze what they were seeing or what they were reading. And yeah, so I have seen things about was it Finland does those kind of classes, helping their students f identify fake news from real news. And
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that's another misunderstanding about, like, say, the White House press briefings. Whenever a reporter is asking a tough question, they're holding government officials accountable. When
right.
someone says something, where are they getting the information, and how do they square that with what was said 2 days ago that is contradicting it?
Hmm.
That's what reporters do, and asking critical questions of the president is not disloyal because they're not there to be loyal to the president. They're
Right.
being loyal to the truth and what the president is saying
Yeah,
or lying about. And
right.
breaking news, presidents lie.
Right. Yes. Even the good ones. Yeah.
Even the good ones,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they stretch the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to be honest, I think the one in office now has no clue what the truth is. He just makes stuff up to whatever is self-serving. And then
Yeah.
everybody in his administration has to be loyal. That is that's the standard. Loyalty to
Yes.
Trump as opposed to the Constitution. And we are
Right.
in grave danger right now.
Yeah.
as a
Yeah, we
republic.
are. Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, there are people out there who are holding, who are saying, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. And then they're getting in trouble. But I love that. I love that they're not kowtowing. Some of them are not kowtowing.
That's right.
I like that.
That's
I
right.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I wish Republicans in Congress would grow a backbone, but they're afraid. Lisa Murkowski said it in so many words. We are afraid. That's not courage, Senator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
John
I know.
McCain showed courage when he, voted down, the attempt to, dismantle the Affordable Care Act. That was
Yeah.
courageous. That was
Yeah.
courageous.
I liked him. I mean, he was a Republican, but we liked him. But we have
Yeah.
good senators now here in Arizona. And and um the representatives for our area are good too. Although Grijalva died, so now they're having a special election to
Mm.
try to replace him. Yeah, unfortunately he died. But yeah. So our little county is supposedly red, and we've had some real problems with the election officials didn't want to certify the election and stuff like that. But but there are pockets of people who are, they're
Yeah, the
they're
resistance
blue.
is out there, and I can't remember where I heard the quote, but one of the strengths of democracy is that every 2 years we get to have a revolution. You get to vote out, the people who are doing bad things.
Right.
And so the midterm elections that are coming up, I think a lot is riding on that. And if you're really upset with what's going on right now, vote them out. Vote them
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's hard to do because the people in power are gerrymandering and they're
Yeah.
manipulating the election, the congressional districts, and they're
Right.
playing with it. Don't get me started.
I know. Well, me either. Because, living in a red state for however many years, and now it's starting to change, thank heaven. But
You
when
think
we
so? You
first,
think so?
oh yeah, yeah, I
Okay,
do.
I hope so.
But it's yeah, it was kind of weird at first when we first moved here because we moved from Oregon,
Yeah.
blue state.
Well, and I think the secret is too that we're probably not going to be able to find common ground politically, but because we can't even agree on the facts, but we can find common human ground. And I
Right.
think that that is the saving grace that can get us through this. Because a lot of the people we disagree with, are still, they may be misguided, but John Gilstrap, who is a best-selling thriller author, he and I have closed a lot of bars because we disagree. He tells me I'm wrong about everything, and I tell him he's wrong about everything too. But we can disagree civilly, and
Yes.
I think that's the key. We don't,
Yeah.
I think we're beyond the point where we know we can convince the other to change their mind. That's not the point. But I think it's valuable to at least understand why. And he's asked me some really good questions about journalism, about, how it's done. What does a producer do?
Right.
Because, where he's not necessarily trying to score rhetorical points at the time, he's trying to understand. And it's the same with me. Help me understand how you've come to this conclusion. And we can learn from each other. Uh,
Yeah. So
so
being
that
curious.
gives me hope. Yeah,
Yeah. So
I think
being
so. I think
curious
so.
about other
Help
people.
me understand. Help me understand.
Right, yeah. One of my favorite quotes is by Dale Carnegie, and I'm not going to say the quote exactly, but it's about ask why people do what they do. That's a lot more
Yeah,
interesting than, you
yeah.
know, condemning them or being judgmental. And so, yeah,
Absolutely. Because we're at a point where we're making everyone the other,
right.
and that's just counterproductive.
Yeah, it
Whether you're
is.
on the left or the right, we need to talk
Yeah.
to each other and understand each other. We may not come away convinced or in agreement, but we'll at least understand a little bit better.
Yes, right. Yeah. So communities are important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
critically important.
and helping each other.
Yep.
Because there are people who are who think completely opposite to me, who might need food. And so if I help
Right.
by, giving food to the food banks, or
Exactly.
they might be, who knows what they need that I can help them with, but I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to help if they need
Sure,
help.
especially when the government is not funding those things nearly as much anymore. So the burden is shifting, and some people would say that's a great thing. I'm not so sure I agree, but
Mhm.
the human need is still out there and needs to be
Right.
met somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, thank you so much for talking to me. I want to ask you one more time. Do you
So,
have
sure. Oh,
anything
I
else you
should
want to
probably
say?
quit while I'm ahead, and I don't even know if I'm ahead by this time. But you've asked some really good questions, and I appreciate your curiosity.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being my guest.
Thanks for the invitation.
I hope you not only enjoyed this episode but gained something valuable to take away with you. If you like what you heard, please share it with your friends and give us a rating and/or review. If you're a story lover too, I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or you might be interested in classic cinema with the Sage Sisters, a YouTube channel and Facebook page I started with my sister Celeste, where we choose one classic movie that we think still has lessons for us today. As you can see, I'm passionate about spreading the love of stories and completely believe what Philip Pullman said. After nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.